My name is Claire Dawson. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my life, my family treated me like an insurance policy they never expected to cash in. I was the dependable daughter. The responsible one. The one who paid her bills on time, showed up when asked, and fixed problems nobody else wanted to touch. My younger brother Tyler was different. Tyler was the dreamer. The favorite. The golden child. When he failed, people made excuses. When I succeeded, people expected more. 3 months ago, my mother looked me in the eye and said 7 words I'll never forget. Your brother deserves this more than you. She said it so casually that for a second I thought I'd misheard her. I hadn't. And those 7 words started a chain of events that destroyed every illusion my family had spent 30 years building. But before I tell you about the confrontation that shocked our entire town, I need to take you back to where it really began. It started with my grandmother's house on Maple Street. Grandma Evelyn was the only person in my family who treated Tyler and me the same. No favorites. No excuses. No golden children. When she passed away at 82, she left behind a beautiful Victorian home she'd owned for nearly 50 years. According to her will, the property would be sold and the money divided equally between her 2 grandchildren, Tyler and me, 50% each. Simple. Fair. Final. At least that's what I believed. A month after the funeral, I drove to my parents' house to help my father organize estate paperwork. The afternoon felt ordinary. Coffee on the kitchen counter. Country music playing softly from the living room. My mother gossiping about neighbors. Nothing unusual. Then I opened a filing cabinet and found a yellow envelope with my name written across the front. What I discovered inside changed everything. The documents were already prepared. The signatures lines already printed. The transfer agreement already written. Every page transferred my entire inheritance from Maple Street directly to Tyler. Every dollar. Every right. Every piece of my grandmother's legacy. All they needed was my signature. And attached to the front was a handwritten note from my mother. A note I was never supposed to see. Have Claire sign after family dinner. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. I read it 3 times. Then a 4th. Because sometimes betrayal is so unbelievable. Your brain refuses to accept it the first time. My own family wasn't planning a discussion. They were planning an ambush. And somehow, everyone knew about it except me. Standing there in my father's office, holding that note in my hands, I realized something important. The family dinner they were organizing wasn't a celebration. It was a trap. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to walk into it. I put every document back exactly where I found it. The envelope. The contract. Even the yellow sticky note. Then I closed the filing cabinet and walked into the kitchen. With the same calm expression I'd worn my entire life. Nobody noticed a thing. My mother was setting the table. My father was watching a baseball game. Tyler was scrolling through his phone. The people planning my ambush sat 10 feet away from me and smiled like nothing was wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing my mother's handwriting. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. Not because she respected me. Because she thought she understood me. She believed I would sacrifice my future rather than embarrass the family. The truth was worse. I'd spent 34 years teaching them that lesson. Every time I stayed quiet. Every time I accepted less. Every time I cleaned up Tyler's messes without complaint. I'd trained them to expect obedience. And now they were betting an entire inheritance on it. 3 days later, my mother sent a group text. Family dinner Friday. Everyone must attend. Important estate discussion. There it was. The performance was scheduled. I replied with a simple thumbs up. Nothing more. Friday arrived. When I walked into my parents' dining room, I immediately noticed something strange. Tyler's wife was there. 2 cousins were there. Even my Aunt Linda had been invited. This wasn't a family dinner. This was an audience. The dining table was decorated like a holiday gathering. Good china. Candles. Fresh flowers. My mother had staged every detail. The meal lasted nearly an hour before anyone mentioned the estate. Then my father cleared his throat. The room went quiet. Your grandmother loved this family, he began. I almost laughed. Whenever someone starts a sentence with that phrase, they're usually preparing to ask for something expensive. My mother reached under her chair and pulled out a familiar yellow envelope. The same envelope. The same papers. The same trap. She placed it in front of me with a smile that looked rehearsed. Sweetheart, she said softly, Tyler has a wonderful opportunity. Tyler nodded confidently. We just need your help getting started. There it was. Not a request. An expectation. The room watched me. Waiting. Certain they already knew how this story would end. What none of them realized was that I'd already read the script. And I had no intention of playing my assigned role. I looked down at the documents. Then back up at the faces around the table. And for the first time in my life, I decided to ask a question nobody in that room was prepared to answer. Before I sign anything, I said calmly, "Can someone explain why money has been disappearing from Grandma's estate account for the last 4 months?" The silence that followed was immediate, and Tyler's face turned completely white. The silence lasted only a few seconds, but it felt much longer. Tyler's confident smile disappeared instantly. My mother's eyes darted toward him. My father slowly lowered his fork onto his plate. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. That was all the answer I needed. "You know what I'm talking about, don't you?" I asked quietly. Tyler forced a laugh. "What are you talking about, Claire?" I reached into my purse and pulled out a small folder. The color drained from his face. 2 days earlier, I'd called the attorney handling Grandma Evelyn's estate. As one of the beneficiaries, I had every right to request financial records. And I did. Every statement. Every transaction. Every withdrawal. The numbers told a story nobody wanted told. I opened the folder and slid several pages across the table. "There have been 6 withdrawals from the estate account," I said. "Total amount? $38,000. My Aunt Linda gasped. My father grabbed the papers. My mother looked confused. Tyler looked terrified. "That can't be right," my father muttered. "It is," I replied. "The signatures authorizing the withdrawals belong to Tyler." The room exploded. "What?" my mother shouted. Tyler jumped from his chair. "It's not what it looks like." "Then what was it?" Because the bank records were clear. Over 4 months, money from Grandma's estate had quietly disappeared. Money that legally belonged to both of us. Money Tyler apparently considered his already. My father stared at him. "You took money from the estate?" Tyler rubbed the back of his neck. "It was a loan." "A loan from who?" I asked. "From Grandma's estate?" Nobody answered. Because nobody could. The truth was sitting right there on the paper. Then came the part Tyler never expected. I pulled out one final document. A court filing. His name was printed at the top. My mother grabbed it first. As she read, her face went pale. "Tyler," she whispered. The document listed more than $92,000 in personal debt. Credit cards. Business loans. Unpaid taxes. Collections. The wonderful opportunity they wanted me to fund wasn't an opportunity at all. It was a rescue mission. Tyler wasn't trying to invest in a business. He was trying to survive financial ruin. And he planned to do it with my inheritance. The entire dinner party sat frozen. For years, everyone had believed the same story. Tyler was unlucky. Tyler needed support. Tyler deserved another chance. But numbers don't care about family stories. Numbers only tell the truth. And for the first time in his life, Tyler couldn't talk his way out of it. Because the paperwork was doing the talking for me. And the worst revelation was still coming. The room had gone completely silent. Tyler sat frozen in his chair. My father stared at the debt records like they were written in another language. My Aunt Linda looked ready to leave. And my mother? She couldn't stop staring at the bank statements. For years, she defended Tyler. Every failed business. Every unpaid loan. Every bad decision. There was always an excuse. But $38,000 missing from Grandma Evelyn's estate wasn't something she could explain away. At least, not anymore. Then I turned to the final page in my folder. The page I'd saved for last. The page that changed everything. "I found something else," I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. My father's face tightened. My mother suddenly seemed nervous. Very nervous. I slid the document across the table. At first, nobody understood what they were seeing. Then my father read the authorization line. And his entire expression changed. Because Tyler hadn't acted alone. Someone had approved the withdrawals. Someone with legal access to the estate account. Someone who had signed every authorization request. My mother. The room exploded. "What?" my father barked. Carol's face turned white. "It wasn't like that." "Then explain it," he shouted. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine panic in my mother's eyes. Not sadness. Not disappointment. Fear. Real fear. She looked at Tyler. Tyler looked at the floor. And suddenly everyone understood. She had known all along. Every withdrawal. Every missing dollar. Every transfer. She hadn't stopped him. She'd helped him. The room felt smaller. Heavier. Like the walls themselves were listening. My father stood up so fast his chair nearly tipped over. "You told me the estate money was untouched." "I was protecting him," my mother whispered. "Protecting him from what?" I asked. "The consequences of his own actions?" Nobody answered. Because that was exactly what she'd been doing. For years. Tyler wasn't the only person who believed he could do whatever he wanted. My mother had taught him that. Every rescue, every bailout, every excuse. She'd spent 30 years convincing him that somebody else would always pay the bill. This time, that somebody was supposed to be me. The family dinner. The audience. The pressure. It all made sense now. They weren't trying to give Tyler an opportunity. They were trying to cover a theft. My father slowly sat back down. For the first time all evening, he looked exhausted. Not angry. Defeated. Then he asked the question nobody wanted to hear. How much is left? I already knew the answer. And judging by the look on my mother's face, so did she. Because the missing $38,000 was only the beginning. The full estate accounting hadn't arrived yet. And when it did, it would reveal a number so large that nobody at that table would be able to pretend this was just a misunderstanding anymore. The family dinner trap had failed. But the real disaster was only getting started. 3 weeks later, the final estate audit arrived. I was at work when the attorney called. His voice was calm, professional, and careful. "Claire," he said, "you need to come in." I already knew it wasn't good. What I didn't know was how bad. When I arrived at his office, a thick report sat on the conference table. The audit had uncovered everything. Not just the $38,000 we'd already found. More withdrawals. More transfers. More unauthorized payments. By the time the accountants finished tracing the money, the total exceeded $127,000. The room felt very quiet when I heard the number. Grandma Evelyn's estate had been treated like Tyler's personal checking account. And every transfer had one thing in common. A signature authorizing it. My mother's. The investigation moved quickly after that. The estate attorney referred the matter to law enforcement and the probate court. For the first time in his life, Tyler couldn't charm his way out of a problem. Bank records don't care about excuses. Paper trails don't care about family loyalty. Facts are stubborn things. Within months, Tyler agreed to a settlement requiring him to repay a substantial portion of the money and surrender any claim to the remaining estate assets. The Maple Street house was sold. But not the way my family expected. After debts, legal fees, and restitution were calculated, the remaining proceeds were distributed according to Grandma's original will. 50% to Tyler. 50% to me. Exactly as she intended. My share wasn't enough to make me rich. But it was enough for something far more important. Freedom. I used part of it as a down payment on a beautiful home outside the city. A quiet place with a wraparound porch that reminded me of Grandma's house. A place nobody could pressure me into giving away. A place that belonged to me. The strangest part came months later. My father called. The first real conversation we'd had since that dinner. I should have stopped it, he said quietly. I should have seen what was happening. For once, he wasn't defending anyone. He was telling the truth. My mother never called. Not once. I heard through relatives that she struggled with the fallout. Not because she got caught. Because for the first time, nobody believed her version of the story. And that was the consequence she never expected. The biggest surprise wasn't losing the money. It was losing control of the narrative. As for me? I kept one thing from Grandma's house. An old brass key she used to keep in a kitchen drawer. It doesn't open any door anymore. But it reminds me of something important. Family isn't the people who demand your sacrifice. Family is the people who respect your boundaries. The revenge wasn't taking anything from them. The revenge was refusing to let them take anything more from me. And in the end, the house on Maple Street taught me the lesson my family never wanted me to learn. Sometimes the most powerful word in the English language isn't yes. It's no.